there was a counselor at Notre Dame by the name of Frank DiMartino who was my counselor. And it was right before Christmas break. And he had called my brother back at South Bend, Indiana, and said, your brother's going to have a nervous breakdown. He said, you better get him out of here. And I flew back to Notre Dame. I lived in my brother's dorm all through my senior year of high school and never came back. He said, I'll graduate your brother. Excuse me. I graduated. I was angry at my father because it set in now. And he kept calling me. My father loved me. And he kept calling me and I wouldn't answer the phone. Or he'd say hello and I knew it was him. I'd hang up. Finally, he got to me and said I was a loser and I'd never make it. And he didn't mean, I'm sorry.
Welcome back to another episode of the Unstoppable Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Crane. And man, today I'm really excited. We got Larry Moriarty here in the podcast studio. Larry's from Santa Barbara. He's from my hometown. He has an incredible story of perseverance, of overcoming adversity, and he's achieved some amazing things. Like we were just talking off camera, and I'm super excited for this interview because he has a lot to share, a lot of value to bring to our audience. So make sure you not only subscribe to the channel, but share this specific episode. Larry's going to talk about playing in the NFL. He went to Notre Dame. He went to the same high school that I went to, made it all the way to the NFL, and then what his life has been like after being a professional athlete, what his life was like when he was competing in bodybuilding shows. He has so many different things he's done, not only from athletics, but then in the business world and real estate, and he was just, bringing us a lot of value there. So I'm excited to have you here, Larry. Thank you so much. And you showed us some pictures a second ago of your upbringing and playing sports as a kid, and you just kind of gave me an idea of your roots and like your mindset and where you come from. Would you just start sharing from the beginning with the audience what it was like growing up here in Santa Barbara, Goleta as a kid, and your passion for football, and kind of we'll just take it from there?
For life.
For life.
My passion for life.
That's one of the things you said. He said, if you're not growing, you're dying. And right then I was like, man, this is going to be a good episode.
Well, first of all, Sean, thanks for having me. Yes, I've had a very, very, very unique life. Things have been tough at times, but has turned out successful. I was raised by a middle class Santa Barbara family, but I had great parents. I had a father that's put a lot of time into me in terms of sports. I had that mom that was always there when I got home from school to make me a sandwich, or she was at all my games. But I cannot complain about my upbringing, but like anybody else's upbringing, it's going to go sideways at some point, and you have to turn and react and put the positive spin on everything that life faces you.
I don't think a lot of people can do that because I want to hear about how do you learn that? What was the first time in your life where you were faced with some real adversity that kind of stopped you in your tracks?
When I was, I would say a senior in high school athletically, but my life kind of went sideways. That my brother, I have one brother that's 3 years older and a sister that's 1 year younger. And my father, like I said, had put a lot of time into us athletically. We were always one of the better athletes in our class, at times the best athlete. But as as time goes on, maturity trumps athleticism. And I was a very, very, very late mature. But my first mentor was always my father, number one. My brother, number two. So I grew up in the shadow of my brother, never envious of his success, but loved what came along with success and all the accolades that he got. But I didn't mature. I played YFL football. I was the MVP, not that that really matters of my team as in seventh grade, and then as eighth, ninth, and 10th grade, and not being racial, but we live in primarily a Hispanic town where the maturity level is a little quicker in they dominate sports in eighth, ninth, and 10th grade, and I don't think I had a hair under my arm as a senior in high school. So I never played. I went out for high school when I was high school football when I was a junior. Never missed a practice and didn't play in one game and came off the field crying. And it was heartbreaking to me. I told my father I'd never play football again, and he said, "No, no, 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 no." My senior year, I went out for football, and I was second string, and it was my last game of our season. And my father asked me to go have breakfast with him. My brother was at Notre Dame. My mom had flown out to Notre Dame to go see my brother play, and my dad had kind of dropped a bomb on me Friday morning before the game and told me that my mother and him weren't getting along, and that he wanted me to meet his girlfriend. And I didn't know how to respond. You think the first thing you'd want to say is, F you or something. I said, no, 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 that was my idol. He buried me. I said, okay. So I went out and I met my dad, and I met his girlfriend that he ended up marrying for, 40 some years. I got on the bus at 2 o'clock at Dos Pueblos to go down to Ventura High School to play Buena. And I had thrown a 6-pack of beer in my travel bag that stayed at the locker room at Dos Pueblos. And went down, played the game, came back from the game, and my dad went from Ventura to Los Angeles and then took the red eye back to Notre Dame where my mom was to see my brother play. And I took the bus back home to Dos Pueblos. We got in about 12 o'clock. And long story somewhat short, somebody has told the coach that I had beer in my locker at Dos Pueblos. And the coach came walking in and opened up the locker and dug through all my stuff. And, out pops a bottle of a Miller beer. And it broke in the locker room at Dos Pueblos. And like the whole team just ran like I was, the worst kid you've ever seen in your life. Well, I hung around the locker room waiting for cleaned up the beer, and I was waiting for the coach to come in and say, hey, this is the deal. And one of my teammates started getting into it with the one coach backed me up against the wall and started pointing at my chest and, ripping into me. And my teammate, said, get your hands off of him. And then that kind of ignited or accelerated the anger that was going on. Anyway, I left the locker room and I walked up at Dos Pueblos High School, which I'm sure you're aware of. We always had the little circle upstairs there. And my girlfriend picked me up. And I'm like every other high school kid. My girlfriend's picking me up. My parents are at Notre Dame. I got the house by myself. And I'm thinking, we're going to have some fun, high school, the whole thing. And I got in the car and I looked at her and I said, listen, this has been a day that you would not believe. My father lays this on me. I never went to school that day because he gave me a note, so I just showed up to take the bus to go down to Ventura. And then this happens in the locker room afterwards where I have beer in the locker. I'm not really a bad kid. I mean, I've never done a drug. But I did have a few beers. My father always allowed beer around the house. So anyway, Saturday and Sunday, this is before you had cell phones and stuff. Saturday and Sunday go by and my eyes are this big. I can't sleep. And my dad calls Saturday afternoon after my brother's game back in South Bend, Indiana, Notre Dame. How are things going? And I said, not going too good, Dad. I got caught with beer in my locker, and I don't know what's going to happen. And he knows what he exposed me to. So he says, well, take care of it when you get home. I said, okay, Dad. And Monday, my parents were both coming home together from South Bend, Indiana. And Monday, I went to school, and around 9:30, I got the pink slip to go to the principal's office. And I went to the principal's office, and it was the principal and the head coach. And the head coach told me that I was a cancer to the team, and we're kicking you off. And we were going into the playoffs the next week to play St. Francis High School down in La Cañada. It was the last game of the season, and then we were going to the playoffs. So I left school, right before 2 o'clock when the practice started because I was no longer on the team. And I'm going home, and I'm going, okay, when my parents get in town, how do I handle myself? And I pulled up in the driveway, and my mom comes sprinting out, bawling. Your father has left me. And I go, okay. I just hugged my mom and said, hey, listen, Mom, we'll be all right. We'll figure it out. Because I thought they were coming home together. That was his time that he was over on Friday. I didn't know. My mom never stayed another day for a year and a half in her own bedroom, slept in my bedroom, because she was devastated. Because our father, her husband, we had on a pedestal because he was a tough son of a bitch, and I love him to death. But it devastated my mom to the point where she didn't even know how to go on. So anyway, a month went by, and there was a counselor at Notre Dame by the name of Frank DiMartino, who was my counselor. And it was right before Christmas break, and he had called my brother back at South Bend, Indiana, and said, your brother's going to have a nervous breakdown. He said, you better get him out of here. And I flew back to Notre Dame. I lived in my brother's dorm all through my senior year of high school and never came back. He said, I'll graduate your brother. Excuse me. I graduated. I was angry at my father because it set in now. And he kept calling me. My father loved me. And he kept calling me, and I wouldn't answer the phone. Or he'd say hello, and I knew it was him. I'd hang up. Finally, he got to me and said I was a loser and I'd never make it. And he didn't mean, I'm sorry.
It's fine. This is what life's all about, man.
He didn't mean, now that I'm older, the way it came across. And he did tell me that, remember the Johnny Cash song, A Boy Named Sue? He named his son Sue so he'd be tough.
Yeah.
Well, he said it to me because he knew that I was the kind that was going to say, I'll show you. Mm-hmm. So I started going to the YMCA. And I remember the first time I put a 45-pound plate on, 135. And I bench press it. And I go, wow, this was something special. And I kept working out and working out. And the biggest guy in the gym was a 26-year-old guy named Frank Jacobs. And for some reason, he took a liking to me. And he said, kid, why don't you work out with me? Well, if you know anything about bodybuilding, and you do, you learn discipline, you learn diet. Most cases, no drinking. Maybe, a lot of those guys were bouncers, and maybe they'd have a glass of white wine, but you never really saw them drinking hard liquor. And I started hanging around with Frank and working out, and next thing I know, it was 2 plates, it was 3 plates, it was 4 plates, it was $4.95. Yes, I got into some steroids,
Some enhancements.
Some enhancements. I mean, really, quite minor. A Dynabol, a tablet every other day.
Well, still, $4.95 bench is impressive.
Yeah.
No matter what.
So I could see then nobody in the gym really competed, and so I'm like, I was raised by a father that taught us to compete, compete, compete. So I said, well, I'll go compete. So I went out for the Teenage California. I went out for 5 or 6 contests, and I did well in every contest. I never won. I won my height class in a couple of contests, but I never won overall because usually the shorter guys are, more jacked.
Yeah.
You know how it goes.
You're compact.
So anyway, the diet, the diet was a bitch. Pardon my language, but I love the discipline, and I can see that monetizing this, there was really no future in making money in the world of bodybuilding. I mean, most of these guys that are the big time guys are dead, But we all model ourselves to want to become Arnold, which Arnold, if you really look at his whole thing, it was the monetization of Arnold Schwarzenegger just barely started with bodybuilding. It's all the real estate and the Hollywood and at the time, they needed an action hero. So my brother said, why don't you go out for football? And it was 2 years out of high school, and I was framing a house down here on Milpa Street, and I wanted to be a contractor. And I never really got past the point where all I was doing was cleaning up after all the builders. I was the guy cleaning the place up, and I'm going, this is not a lot of fun because I didn't know all the, studs and beams and the different things. I was just learning. So when my brother said to go out and play football at City College, he called City College's coach. And I remember the coach said that, he's 240. He said he's strong, he's big, doesn't mean he can play football. And I understand that. But remember, I was always an athlete before I was a bodybuilder. And I said, well, there's no future in a 240-pound lineman. So I said, I want to go out for fullback because that's what I played in the YFL. Okay, but we have a starting fullback. And I said, well, give me a chance. So I went out there with this anger and this chip in my shoulder. And all I wanted to do, like I said, was compete. And I competed from the weight room when guys wouldn't even go to the weight room. When I started going to the weight room, they were all going to the weight room. I was always competitive. I was always a leader. So as much as I talk about how my father drove me with the hurt, he's also the man that raised me to have those kind of attributes. Mm-hmm. So I played 1 year at City College, and the first game, I remember we played Rio Hondo, and I had like 130 some odd yards rushing and 5 or 6 grabs and 2 touchdowns. And my brother had brought a guy that came into our lives kind of like a father figure because my father left right away. I never saw him for a year. And he moved back up to San Luis Obispo because that's where I was originally born and raised till 6th grade coming down here. And this gentleman was a movie actor, Scott Brady. And the ironic thing with Scott is Scott was in AA, and he was very close with the athletic director at Notre Dame. So he had the ability, after me having an outstanding freshman year, to go to Notre Dame, they don't take junior college transfers. They take only incoming freshmen.
Wow.
And he contacted Moose Krause, who was a legend at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
And he said, I got a kid, and I want this kid at Notre Dame. He goes, send me his tapes. So I went right to the athletic director. The athletic director went down to the coaching staff. The coaching staff saw me and went, you saw the pictures. There's fullbacks in the NFL that don't look like that. Because the time that I put in the weight room and the desire that I had to be addicted to wanting to be somebody.
Yeah, like you said, you had that chip. You wanted to prove
I had a
yourself.
chip.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be somebody. So
I want to talk about that in a second too. Like a lot of people don't have that desire inside of them. Why? Let me ask you. Why do you think that is?
I think my father, my father worked with his father. It was a two-man cab company in New York City, so he had always had to fight and scrap And then he came out here, hitchhiked out, and went to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo and played football. And he always instilled to us self-confidence, discipline, all the proper things. And the crazy thing is he had a horrible upbringing. And how did he have that insight to teach us and motivate us? He should have been a coach. And I know you're sitting there going, he just told you you were a loser and you'd never make it. But he knew the hot button to motivate me. And I don't know why I still have that chip on my shoulder today. But what I don't have is the worst thing that anybody can have is jealousy. Jealousy rears its ugly head. It's over. It's over in anything. And I've never been jealous. I look and see at people that are more successful than me and I say, how do I get there? It's like a gentleman, another mentor that came into my life. We were talking one day from the financial world, and I always use that analogy of my father went down and got us the Pyramid of Success by John Wooden. And I shared this with this gentleman, and he says, Larry, take that pyramid and turn it upside down. And that's the way you want to look at your life.
Wow.
Where do you want to be? And work it backwards and what it's going to take. So hypothetically, I'm 66 years old. How old are you?
36.
36. If you want to be a billionaire, you can be a billionaire. But this is what it's going to take. Are you willing to pay that price?
Yeah. Yeah, you got to reverse engineer it, right?
Reverse it.
Yeah.
And I never thought of life that way because we go through life with income. We go through life thinking about income, how much money we earn, which 60% goes to taxes. It's ridiculous. It's not about income. It's about equity. Or we go through life and we think about all these things that the books teach us. And it's not really true. It's not the real deal.
I want to ask you one question before, because I want to know about Notre Dame.
Yeah.
But you said some really important and insightful stuff about childhood. So you got the MVP in 7th grade for football.
Yes.
You were the best player. And then you went into high school and you didn't hit your growth spurt, you didn't mature, so you weren't even playing. So that was a lot of adversity right there. And then the divorce with your parents. A lot of people go through stuff like that, including myself, and it breaks them for a time. Like I told you, I lost both my parents my first month as a freshman. So I was like trying to figure out who I am as a young man. Dad goes to prison. Mom, I lose her to her addiction. And it broke me. I didn't channel that anger into a positive avenue. I tried to numb myself and escape. So I think it's incredible that you stayed present and you were able to be there for your mom and then go and be there for your brother. How did you get through that without becoming really insecure and kind of broken? I think at a young age we are insecure to an extent, but you were able to hold on to that drive, that confidence, and that belief in yourself through those tough times, it sounds like.
The answer is I don't know. The only thing I can think of is the mental toughness that my father brought us up with. And then, we always talk about our fathers and the mental toughness, but I always had that glue at home too, which was my mom. My mom never babied us. And when I look back at life in general right now, the power of a mom is pretty heavy because most fathers are out there hustling and working. They can come home and drip on you. But who's with you all day? Mom.
Yeah.
And my mom never let me baby myself. She'd be the first one to tell me when I'd go out at night when there was no father figure anymore and you're running around with girls and stuff, she'd always look at me and say, son, you're responsible for your actions.
Wow.
And I knew what that meant. The other thing is I was proud of my parents, and I think most kids should try to be at least proud of their parents. I don't want to let them down.
Yeah.
I didn't want to let them down. So the way I'd let them down is if I let myself down. And I couldn't let myself down. I had too many mentors to me that were helping me along the way. But remember, too, you can walk away from this podcast and you can say, Well, he was fortunate that he had mentors. Well, I put myself in a position to be able to have those mentors. I got up at 5:30, 6 in the morning and went to the YMCA
Yeah, you
to
stood
meet
out.
Frank Jacobs.
Yep.
I went and met this guy that was going to challenge me. I always liked to be around people who were bigger, stronger, more successful, richer, whatever, if it's all about money. I always like being around successful people. I want to read and hear about successful people. One of the reasons that I'm here today is because I want to see people be me. I want to see you be successful. I want to see, Matt be successful. I want to see people that you're around, because when you see people out there working hard to try to be somebody, that was my addiction. I just
Yeah.
wanted to be somebody.
Yeah, I love that. You shared earlier desire and discipline.
Desire and discipline.
That's the key to success. And what you just shared a second ago is like being in rooms where you're the dumbest person or the least wealthiest person or the smallest person. How are you going to grow? Get around people who are more successful.
More successful.
And they say like success leaves clues. You observe them, you spend time with them. What do you think's going to happen, right? So I love that so much. And I want to talk about your upbringing with your dad, because you refer to him a lot, and the attributes he instilled in you, and your mother. How important, and let's compare it to nowadays. Like, what do you think about parenting in 2024, what you see compared to when you grew up? And then younger people, the way they're growing up, do you think they have the same mental toughness, the same attributes that are instilled into them as you did? Or have you seen a big change in that in your time?
Huge change. And absolutely not. They don't have the discipline. It's a different world today. Everybody's on their cell phones. You go to school today and you got reading, writing, and arithmetic and go home. We loved to go into school at Dos Publics. We went out there. There was a ping pong table. It was our social life. In this, I don't want to get political, but in this woke world, they don't even want football anymore.
Well, it is political because they're trying to take away a lot of the things that strengthen people. They don't even have PE for kids.
Scott O'Leary,
That was your coach,
at
right?
Dos Publics High School,
Yeah.
told me that Friday night football includes 22 organizations, from cheerleading to song leading to band to ROTC, all these different things. How do you take Friday night football out of the curriculum of these kids growing up? That's the first time you go to a game and sit and meet a girl.
Yeah. But I'd always go to the games because
Absolutely.
the energy, right? You're chasing the girls, you're around your buddies, the whole school is there, and there's a sense of unity. I think that's so important. I think, like they say, the nuclear family, which is a man and a woman raising their children, you have that sense of unity at home that which instills that confidence in yourself, that gives you a sense of like, I'm safe, I'm protected, I can go out and achieve in the world. And kids that don't grow up with that are a strong man to lead them, and then the mother who can play her role, like it's a team effort, Mm-hmm. I think people are just so confused nowadays, and I don't know. I was fortunate that I had my parents in my life enough when I was young to get a little of what you're describing. I didn't have the role model in my father I needed, though. Mm-hmm. But I got it from Uncle Mark and other strong men like you. I've been able to have mentors and people I gravitated towards. I think that's kind of a natural thing. If you want to excel, you almost search out those people that you can learn from, even if it's not a father or a family member. But
you had some adversity.
Yeah, a lot.
That you saw that I don't like the adversity. See, a lot of people who are followers and not leaders can have that adversity and succumb to it and say, well, like people who go to prison and they get out and they're more comfortable to be back in.
Yeah.
You're walking away saying, that's not who I want to be.
A lot of people say it's really hard to change in a negative environment, which is true, but prison was the best environment for me because every day I saw examples of who I did not want to be like. I didn't want to talk like those guys. I didn't want to walk like them. I operated way differently. So for me, it was the best place to change my life because it was like God put me in those rooms or that cell and was like, hey, dummy, this is where those choices led you. Is this who you are? Mm-hmm. And it wasn't. And, now that we're talking about like mentors and the impact of your father growing up, I'm interested to hear some of the things your father told you, because one thing stands out that my dad would always tell me, and it helped me so much in my life. He would always tell me, Sean, you're a leader, not a follower. And my dad battled with addiction. He had a good heart, but he just couldn't overcome his demons. And he wanted to be this amazing person. I know he did. I saw glimpses of it. But he'd always tell me, you're a leader, not a follower. And I remember at a young age playing YFL and going to school, I identified with a leader. I'm not a follower. And that helped me a lot because it helped me to feel comfortable in my own skin and to not follow the crowd and to just do things to impress people. We all do that to an extent. But I always had this confidence in myself because of that. What are some things you remember that your dad told you growing up? You said he helped you instill confidence, to be a leader as well. Like all these positive attributes. Was there certain things he would say to you and tell you?
I'm sure there was. Nothing comes to my head off the top of my head, but he also he led by example. That's the life he lived. I saw my dad go take a run every day, and I used to scratch my head. And I lived in Rancho Embarcadero, and he'd run a couple miles, and I go, "Who the hell wants to go run a couple miles every day?" What do I do today? Run a couple miles.
Yeah, so is the example.
I saw the way he lived his life. I saw the things that he has done wrong and the things that he's done right. So I can understand what I want to do because we can only learn by other people's mistakes. And the other thing that helped me is that I also had the mentor to see the way my brother lived. My brother was a straight A student. I was lucky to get C's, but I saw the way he was. So I had an idol in my own family between my father and my brother. And I saw the way I wanted to live my life. But as you saw in the pictures, when maturity trumped me, there's nothing I could do. I was out of control in that. But what people don't understand, if you have the desire and the discipline, we're all going to get a couple of whiskers. We're going to all mature. So it's not the way you start the game. It's the way you finish. And I think for a lot of people, what drives me now is a lot of things, but one of the things that drives me is jealousy. And the jealousy is only from people that don't have that desire and that discipline. And now they look at you and all they want to do is talk about, oh, he got kicked off the team. Oh, he went to prison. Oh, he went. The more I hear that, the bigger my smile gets.
Yeah, there's a saying that nobody that is further ahead or more successful than you is ever going to hate on you.
No.
You know what I mean? Like the people that hate on other people, they're projecting their own insecurities and the things they didn't do onto other people. Like they don't know what it took to get to that level, That's why it's so cool to hear your story though and other people's stories, because we all judge people but when you hear what individuals have gone through to get there, you have to respect it, And I want to go to your days in Notre Dame because I think that's so fascinating that they didn't take on junior college athletes. Mm-hmm. Then they say, hey, you're going to Notre Dame. Like, what was that feeling like for you? This is a guy who loved football, who's ultra competitive, who didn't really excel in high school at all. And then you got 1 year at City College. Now you're going to Notre Dame. Do you remember that feeling when you found out?
Yes, I do. But again, I think it was the way I was raised. I just felt like I was supposed to be there.
Yeah.
I guess I was too dumb and naive to understand that I saw that vision and nothing was going to stop me.
You expected that to happen.
And I think the confidence, again, so much of the confidence came from being in the gym, getting around guys that were older, bigger, stronger, and it excited me. I knew that when I walked out in the field and I played 11 years of football, between City College, Notre Dame, and 7 in the pros, I was always the strongest guy in the field. I knew it. I knew that. So when I looked at people and I got older and started to become more of a student of the game, I could see that, if this guy was 6'4", 250, and I'm 6'1.5", 240, 243, he can't get under me. I can get under him because I'm shorter. I figured it out that the harder guys to play against was the guys like a guy named Tom Jackson, who was 5'9", that I could not get under him, even though I was stronger. So I was smart enough to figure out that it's strength, it's leverage, it's speed, and then mentally, it's, you got to have a sense of toughness, because everybody's going to get their ass kicked out there at some point.
I could imagine.
It's who gets back up.
Yeah.
So
what was Notre Dame like? How many years did you play, and how was the team?
3 at Notre Dame. Walked in there right away, and I knew I was a better athlete, a better fullback than my talent. But I forgot one thing. They have experience and they know the plays. I didn't know the plays.
Yeah.
So as things started moving along, and I started getting more and more self-confidence, because I was never going to let anybody take my confidence down, because that's not the way I was raised. So my senior year, I had a big year, and everything started coming together. I'll share one thing with you. My senior year, we played the first night game in the history of Notre Dame Stadium. We played Michigan. I was the MVP of the game.
Wow.
And to come off that field, and it was like 90 degrees and humid as hell. I was exhausted. And I walked off that field and walked out of the locker room, and there's my dad to give me a big hug. I know I fulfilled his dream on what he wanted, on what he prepared us to be somebody. I didn't know what. My father loved Notre Dame, being a New Yorker, Irish.
Yeah. Yeah.
Notre Dame is...
How was that feeling for him knowing that? Because I think as a kid, you always want to make your dad proud, right?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. If you don't want to make your dad proud, the deck's stacked against you. There's something's not right. I think every one of us, if we're raised with any kind of foundation, want to make our dad proud. I mean, who doesn't want to make their dad proud?
Yeah.
And I wanted to make my dad proud, even though he hurt my feelings, and it bothers me till today. But I know his heart, that wasn't what he meant, was to tell me I was a loser. But no, my Notre Dame experience, and then from leaving Notre Dame, and I played in the Senior Bowl, and then getting drafted by the Houston Oilers, and back to the weightlifting. When I got drafted by the Oilers, we had the first 2 days, we had 3 days of minicamp. They bring everybody in, veterans, rookies, and they put us through, I want to say 11 tests, and in the first 2 days. And I won 7 of the 11 tests.
Wow.
Benched 495. I did 77 bar dips. I squatted 715. I had the highest vertical jump. And I obviously didn't have the fastest 40. And I never made the 1.5 miles in 9.5 minutes. I don't know if it was the steroids or what, but damn mile and
big,
I wasn't built for 1.5 miles.
Yeah.
Or like Earl Campbell would say, he used to call me Piccolo. Brian Piccolo. He's black and I'm white. He'd say, Piccolo, when it's 3rd and 1.5 miles, don't call me because I ain't coming in. So anyway, I go down there. The first 2 days, we do all these tests. And the 3rd day, it happened to be raining, so we went into the Astrodome to practice. And it was just helmets and, shirts. Nobody's hitting. And they said, okay, starting offense, get out there. Well, obviously, I won all these tests, but I'm not the starter. I don't even know the plays. So there was a running back, a fullback, that was Earl's fullback, named Tim Wilson, who had a drug addiction and ended up overdosing. But he was holding out. So the second string fullback was a guy named Stan Edwards, he was kind of a tweener. He was only like 210, 215. And I'm in there at 245, 243. So the starting offense gets out there, and it's Earl Campbell, who's the franchise player, Archie Manning, Hall of Fame tight end, what the hell's that? Just with them. Played forever with the Raiders. Anyway, a guard, Mike Munchak, A tackle, Mike Munchak was a Hall of Famer. Our tackle was a Hall of Famer, Bruce Matthews. Dave Casper was the tight end. Went to Notre Dame. How can I forget Dave's name? And here's all these studs in the middle. And Stan Edwards walks in because he's the second string fullback. And I'm just sitting in the back. I don't even want to get in there because I don't know the plays. And Earl never called anybody by their name. He'd call you by your number. And Stan's number was 32. And he says, 32, you're out. And he looks back. The coach didn't even call this. He looks back and he says, Piccolo, get your ass in here. And it was all because of the respect, because he saw the time I put in my physique, because we had talked earlier about respect. When you see somebody that's put time in the gym, it registers in your brain that, I don't know if I like this guy or dislike this guy, but I know he's got the discipline and the respect to be what he is.
Yeah, 100%. I think people are going to judge you right away. It's just human instinct.
Absolutely.
Do you want them to judge you for a good reason? Like you're fit and you probably have some discipline, and you probably have some grit, or you're lazy, you're sloppy, you don't care about yourself. Like,
well, you look at these. You walk down State Street here, and you look at the homeless people. When you look at those people, and the first thing I look at is, are they clean? Do they have a cell phone? Because if they have a cell phone, they're at least walking into Starbucks and charging it. They have at least a foundation or a base of some sort of discipline, because they have a regimented system of doing something.
they're trying.
They're
right?
trying.
Yeah.
At least you got a chance.
You got to try, yeah.
If you see that person walking down State Street and they got crap in their pants and they have no cell phone and they're done.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do for that person because they don't want anything of themselves. Mm-hmm. They don't even know what wanting something from themselves is.
Yeah.
So, like you said, that first look, you can see if somebody wants it or doesn't want it. I played with several guys that were outstanding players. They had no discipline. I played with guys at City College that had the potential to do what I did, but didn't have the discipline. You can see that they didn't want it. They didn't work. There's guys in the pros that didn't work. So you accept them for who they are, but do you respect them? No. I didn't respect a lot of the guys. You see them and, hey, how you doing? They were God-given a lot of natural ability, but they didn't put the time in. And I felt like I put the time in, and I think I still put the time in today. No, I don't lift like I used to lift and do the things that I used to do, but I got to at least walk in that gym every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I like seeing the young studs, the young guys that want it, because it makes me flash back to the days that I was doing it. Again, I want to see other people achieve everything that I've achieved.
I love that. I mean, you talk about
that excites me.
Mentors growing up, right? And then once you get to a certain level of success, you want to be around the young and upcoming guys, probably for a couple reasons. You want to pass down your wisdom and experience to them, but then it probably keeps you fired up. Like you said, when you see a guy like Matt in the gym or some youngsters, it keeps that drive alive inside of you, right?
I talk to Matt all the time, and I try to teach him that okay, you're in a great position right now, but you need to monetize this, because this is nothing more than the entertainment business. I know everybody likes to get caught up in pro sports and think that it's all about Super Bowls and this and that, and the truth is, it's the entertainment business, and you got to take care of yourself, and the way to take care of yourself is to monetize what you're doing. You're not there just to be happy that you're the strength coach at Miami. How are you going to monetize this? How are you going to help other people? how is it going to benefit your life? Because in this life, if you don't take care of number one, there isn't anything else.
And nobody else is going to do it for you.
No.
So you played 7 years in the NFL, and then when you got out, when did you start thinking this way? Were you already thinking about your career after football?
No.
Or money and wealth building?
No. What I did do, though, is I knew that it was a false income from day one. I knew you weren't going to make that.
How much did you make back then in the NFL?
In my 7 years in the NFL, I made $1.5 million. Wow. So that's, in 2 of the years, I was the 6th highest paid running back in the league. So I was up the ladder.
Yeah.
But only made $1.5 million. So after taxes, what's that, 800,000?
Yeah, it's like 100,000 a year, roughly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Wow.
But
what year was that?
1983.
Okay.
So in 83, I thought I would be, big shot, and I went and bought a condo on East Beach for 180 grand. And as soon as I bought the condo, within 4 or 5 weeks, our head coach got fired. So we had to go back and impress the new coach. So I only lived in it for 1 month. And I rented out. My father says, I'll just leave it vacant. And I said, no, Dad. I'm not doing that. I'm going to rent it out. And I rented it out for $1,200 a month. And $1,200 was just basically covering the payment. It didn't even cover the property taxes. And I moved back to Houston because Houston, long story short, I had a beautiful high-rise condo on the 36th floor overlooking the city because in 83, the economy was tough in Houston. And I had 1,700 square feet in this high-rise condo, beautiful, overlooking the city for $600 a month rent.
Wow.
So I thought, why would I want to buy if I can rent for $600? So I just rented there, and I bought this condo. Well, that condo today, I still have, is $6,400 a month rent and $2.2 million. And I have 18 properties.
Wow. And where are you? All in Santa Barbara?
All in Santa Barbara. I have 18 SFR single-family residences here in Santa Barbara, and I have a 30-unit apartment complex.
Wow.
And never in my wildest dreams thought I would be in this position. Again, mentor. There was a guy named Tony Romasana that was an attorney in town and got into real estate who's been extremely successful. He's deceased. And I knew his son, went to Dos Pueblos, and I played in a charitable golf tournament at La Cumbre Country Club. And he was, I was the celebrity, and he was the guy that was in the cart with me. And he said, Larry, you put your money in real estate in Santa Barbara, and in 15 years, you'll sit back and be on Easy Street. And he was so right. So right. I never in my wildest dreams thought that it would be like that. But then I hit a point after 30 years, obviously 83. I started buying 83, 4, 5, 6. 30 years go by, and, we're taught to own everything free and clear. Free and clear. Cash flow, money, income.
Yeah.
Income. And 30 years went by, and I don't know who taught me this. The light just went on and said, I don't want to own this free and clear, because if I own it free and clear, my income's through the roof, and I'm giving half of it to the government. So I said, I need to buy more. So I loaded up and started buying more. And that's when the light went on that it's not about income. It's about equity. You look at all these people out there that own real estate, and real estate in Santa Barbara is gold. Mm-hmm. Gold. It's equity, equity, equity. Yes, you have to do this type of podcast type of things and think outside the box to get the income, to get the equity. Mm-hmm. So, no, it just was common sense for me, and I was a communication major. Never really put a lot of time into class. Even in Notre Dame, I didn't study much, but I did never miss class. I went to class every day, because I had to know something to be able to test out. But no, this town is golden, and I think I had mentioned it to you. I felt very fortunate in my life that I've been involved in those three biggest brands.
Yeah.
Notre,
Say what they are again.
Notre Dame football. I don't care what anybody says. Hey, if you watch the game on Saturday night, forget about the game, forget about the win, forget about the losses. 82 million people watch that game.
Wow.
Or 8.2 million people. I'm sorry.
Still a lot of people.
8.2 million people watch that game. Notre Dame goes to a bowl game. What people don't understand, back in the day, I don't know what the leagues they have today, but like, say, the Pac-12. If you go to a bowl game and you make $20 million, that $20 million is divided between all 12 teams.
Okay.
Notre Dame, they get it all. They got their own TV contract. So Notre Dame football, NFL football, which is ridiculous, the amount of money. Major League Baseball and basketball are not even a pimple on the NFL's backside as far as the money and the revenue that's generated.
Wow.
And the third thing is what I don't think a lot of people in Santa Barbara, because they're so busy with their head down, they don't look up and see that this is the most beautiful place in the world where people want to be. When I go out to dinner with some of these people where there's a group of us, and everybody's talking at the table, where you from, where you from. As soon as you say Santa Barbara, their head pops up. Oh, it's beautiful there.
Yeah.
Have you been there? No. Oh, then how do you know it's beautiful? This place is in a league of its own. Total league of its own. I don't know if it's the islands, it's the mountains. You go look at these Hollywood stars, celebrities that live in Malibu. Malibu doesn't come close to the beauty of Santa Barbara,
You're right.
California.
You got the mountains
Not
right on the
even
ocean.
close.
Yep.
And the money that's coming in here, when you got guys like Ty Warner, worth whatever he's worth, $10, $15 billion, taking the Biltmore, just shutting it down for 3 years and remodeling it. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of money that's here. You take the other guy that's a huge fan of Santa Barbara, and Santa Barbara should be a huge fan of his, is this Rick Caruso.
Who is Rick Caruso?
Rick Caruso is very successful, wealthy man. He owns probably two, three of the biggest, most beautiful malls. The one in Los Angeles, I always want to call it the Palms, the Grove. He owns the Grove. I don't know this, but I wouldn't be surprised that he'll end up taking La Cumbre Plaza and just turning that into a mixed use. I mean, this guy loves Santa Barbara. He owns what's the hotel? Rosewood,
Okay.
the old Miramar.
Oh, yeah.
Guy loves Santa Barbara. You got some of the biggest players in our country that have their fingers in Santa Barbara real estate.
Yeah, so I mean, it'd be really cool to do. We talked about doing another episode, another interview, where we talk about real estate and maybe people who are local that want to get into real estate. Where do they start? Because what would you say for someone who doesn't own real estate here for the next 10, 20, 30 years, the opportunity? Like, it doesn't sound like it's the same as it was when you started, because now it's probably pretty competitive, and there's, like you said, a lot of wealthy people who are getting their fingers into the real estate here. But for a guy like me who definitely wants to get into real estate in Santa Barbara, is it possible? And then, like, what would that look like? What would the process be, right? I think that'd be a really cool, informative episode without giving away too much of your game and secrets, you know?
Yeah, I would love to talk about that.
Maybe we'll talk a little off camera.
but I will tell you, everything you do has a real estate play, would be my advice to you. Meaning, if it's sober living, your income is through sober living, but you own the real estate.
Yeah.
If it's doing a live podcast, and you're doing a live podcast and you're using this office space an hour or two a week, no, you're turning this into where other people hypothetically are doing podcasts out of here,
Yeah.
leasing it from you, but you own the dirt.
Yeah.
You own the building. So you're paying yourself.
Yeah.
So as your income goes up, your lease goes up. You're just charging yourself.
Yeah.
So you're not paying all this money in taxes for this government. And I don't want to get into politics, just to write checks and give money away to everybody. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
You can't
Well,
just give money away.
We should do an episode on real estate, money, and politics is intertwined with it all. So we got to talk about that a little.
I'd love to talk about it, but I'll be the bad guy. You can
I'll just
say
ask the questions.
You just ask the questions, and
I think nowadays, though, with politics, the bad guy is actually the good guy. You know, there's a lot, like, without getting too much into it, the people that have different opinions from the masses, those are typically free thinkers, people who understand the game more in depth. And those are the people I pay attention to. I don't watch the news. I like to watch podcasts and certain interviews and study people because you're not getting all the information on mainstream media and TV.
Very good point, Sean. But and we touched on this one word, and there's two kinds of people. There's the haves and the have-nots. And I don't want to say one is better than the other because I like the person, even if they're a have-not. If they have that desire to be somebody, they won't be a have-not. But the majority of the have-nots, I want to be politically correct here, the majority of the have-nots, not all, but the majority of them, have that one word, jealousy. And so they don't care. They don't want to be around the person that they think is a have because they're jealous. And when you look at all this political scene that we see out there right now, granted, it's politics on both sides. You know, they're embellishing on both sides. Mm-hmm. But when you look at this, the choices that we have, this person doesn't want to vote for this person because they don't like them. Instead of, well, okay, that's fine. But forget about names, places. What person of those two people are going to benefit you the most? And when you look at the giveaways, all the giveaways are just going to make people who have more and more and more money if you're in the real estate business because they can't afford to buy. They have to rent. You can't walk in there and have 8% mortgages. Nothing pencils at 8%. I don't want to buy at 8%. I want to see mortgages down in the 3s.
Yeah.
So the young people can have a chance to get into investing.
Yeah.
But the more you print money and the more you give away money, I mean, they're talking about right now proposing $25,000 to a first-time home buyer. What is $25,000 going to do for you? Number one. Number two, just because the government gives you $25,000 does not mean the bank, you qualify at the bank to get a loan.
Yeah.
So
definitely not in Santa
So who
Barbara.
gets to take care of the first-time home? Who gets to take advantage of the first-time home buyer at $25,000? Me. I'll go buy 3 places, 4 places, one for each of my kids.
Yeah.
So who's getting richer?
The rich.
You said it. I didn't say it.
Yeah.
It's a joke.
It's smoke and mirrors, right?
It's smoke and mirrors.
And most people are just emotional when they make their decisions about who to elect in politics. And I think we can get into a whole nother episode about that, but I want to wrap this one up because this was really awesome, Larry. Like, you brought a lot of value and insight. Your journey is very inspiring. I love your whole mindset, and my podcast is called Unstoppable Mindset. You represent that to a T. Like, to go from a kid in Goleta at Dos Pueblos High School who didn't even play football, went to the gym, built his confidence and body up, got around the right people, walked on at City College, went to Notre Dame, and then the NFL. It just shows people who are listening and watching this, like, if you want something bad enough, you can achieve it. It's not always going to be an easy path. It's not going to go your way, but it's possible if you don't quit and give up. And I think that more people need to focus on, their daily habits every day to instill that type of grit and conviction and confidence. Because when you truly believe in yourself, everything in life is possible. But when you don't have confidence, everything seems impossible. Right? So is there anything else you want to share with anybody who watches this? I mean, I want them to share this episode with as many people as possible. And make sure you look up Larry Moriarty. Google him. You got some awesome photos, man, of Notre Dame, of playing on the Houston Oilers. Just a lot of cool stuff. And the ones you brought today. I really appreciate you being here. Any final words, though, you want to share before we end this episode?
I appreciate you having me more than you'll ever know. I know I have a unique story, and I don't mean that being conceited, because a lot of people took a part of my story. But what I want to see is the way that people like yourself and others that are younger, or even my children or whatever, the way you can thank me is I want to see you be successful. That's why I'm here. And you already are. You've already jumped to that next level. There's no going back.
No.
I can look in your eyes. There's no going back.
We're just getting started.
Just getting started. All you needed was a different formula to a different playbook, but it's the same. You're checking the same dots. You want to be somebody. End of story. And you'll figure it out. And I can already see the success right here. So thanks for having me. And I want to come back.
We're going to do it again for sure.
And I want to sit back someday when you're the one and I'm interviewing you, and you're talking about your real estate portfolio, how you monetize this, how you grew this, because it's just the discipline of the muscle, the discipline of overcoming failure, the desire and the discipline of wanting to be somebody.
Yeah, I love it. You heard it from Larry, right? Thank you guys for checking out this episode. Make sure to share it. We're going to be back with Larry Moriarty again very soon.